Hello, everyone, and welcome to AWS Heroes in Conversation. Today we have Brian Tarbox. Hello, Brian. Welcome to my channel, right? And he is going to talk about Alexa emotionality. So, Brian, before we even continue further ahead, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself so that our audience can know you better?
Okay, sounds good. I actually have a page for that. And come on. Whoop. There we go. There we go. It's 7:30 in the morning my time, so still working on a little coffee. So I'm an AWS community hero, which just means I talk a lot. I also run the Boston AWS really need that coffee. AWS user group. I've got certifications and stuff. I used to be a dolphin trainer. That can be a topic for another day. And I've been writing Lexa skills for about 7 years. My primary Lexa skill is called Premier League and talks about the beautiful game in England. And we don't say the S word in this household. It's football. It's proper football.
Absolutely.
So
Well, that's great. Is that the picture that's there on the top? Is that your usual self?
yes, that's a picture from last year's reInvent.
Oh, reinvent. Okay.
Yes. I love reInvent, and the blinky glasses are awesome. I still have them here someplace. And so this is my webpage, so you can find out all kinds of stuff.
Sure. I'll have the link to this webpage posted in the description of the video as well. So
Okay.
anybody wants to follow, I think I see a couple of menu items on the left, like open source and patents, presentations. I think people will be interested in some of that, Brian. Absolutely. So thank you for coming, and I think let's deep dive into our topic for today, which is Alexa emotionality. So over to you, Brian.
Okay, cool. So if you and for once I've remembered to turn off my Alexa devices, because I've drunk the Kool-Aid and we've got multiple devices in just about every room in the house. But if you're not familiar with Alexa, it's the little hockey pucks that Amazon makes that let you control lights and get answers and so on. And for some reason, Amazon decided to call their apps skills, which is a little confusing, but I think it's because they didn't want to get in trouble with the Apple App Store. But in any case, so one of the things that people always wonder about Alexa is it listening all the time? And to which I say, if you have a phone, you're being listened to all the time. So that ship has sailed. Don't worry about it. But Alexa is listening for the wake word, which is either Alexa or Echo or computer. And now they've added Ziggy, which I don't understand. But anyway, so it's listening all the time, but it's not storing anything. Nothing is going off of the device until it hears the wake word. So the user says, Alexa, what's the weather? Alexa hears that, sends it off to the skill interaction model, which is a natural language, understanding system, figures out what you wanted. Because you might say something like, what's the day look like? And if you say that, it has to figure out, well, you're asking about the weather or the calendar or whatever. But it makes a decision about what it thinks you wanted. It then passes it to your skills application logic, which is typically a Lambda. And then your Lambda formulates a response, sends it back, and then the system speaks it to you. All of this hopefully happening in less than about 500 milliseconds, because anything longer than that, people aren't patient.
Yes, agreed.
People are especially not patient anymore.
Or they might just think that Alexa is not working or or sleeping probably.
Right. You do have the blue light going, but sometimes people aren't paying attention to that. So we know that these devices are devices. We know that they're not people. But we try really hard, Amazon and the skill writers try really hard not to put it in your face that they're not people. I mean, we almost always refer to Alexa as she. Um, and so we try hard to maintain that illusion, to not put it in your face. Now, I will say, if people aren't, this sort of actually gets into the uncanny valley. And if you're not familiar with that notion, it's that if a simulation is almost completely believable but not quite, that's
Mhm.
called the uncanny valley, and people tend to get freaked out by that. If a simulation is perfect, that's okay. If it's obviously, not perfect, something like South Park, then that's okay. But for some reason, we get freaked out if something is almost perfect. And from a evolutionary point of view, you have to wonder, why evolutionarily did we learn to get freaked out by something that looked human but wasn't quite human? So that's just sort of an interesting thing for horror writers to read about.
No.
But
I
anyway,
mean, I have one question over here. Just pondering. I think maybe even audience might be pondering that. So Siri, Cortana, Alexa, and you also mentioned that we always refer to Alexa as she. Is there a very specific reason why it's always a female or a woman and not a male? I would like to have like a male voice on the other side, or maybe have a male name on the other side.
they actually have recently added the ability to have a male voice, uh, but it hasn't really caught on. I mean, one of the things that people, and so one of the things people always ask is, well, why can it only be, Alexa, Echo, or computer? Why can't it be any old name I want? Well, the
Correct.
problem is that is actually built into the hardware. The notion of listening all the time and then hearing one particular word is actually quite hard. And so that's, as I understand it, in the hardware, or at least the firmware of the system. Um, so they started with one word, Alexa, and then they added Echo, and then they added computer, which is fine unless you're watching Star Trek, and then it gets triggered all the time. So there is a male voice, and I actually tried it for a while, and I don't know, just didn't grab me. So there is a male voice, um, but it hasn't gotten a lot
It
of,
hasn't caught on as yet. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, definitely. If it's Alexa, maybe I would like to call it as Alex, maybe for a change. That'd
Well,
be nice.
I'll find out what the male voice is for your show notes. But
Absolutely.
anyway, and it's funny, there actually is a group that's demanding that Amazon change the name from Alexa because they have family members who are named Alexa. So it's um they're annoyed. Now
Annoyed by that.
the funny thing is, I have so many Alexa devices in our house that when I'm talking about her, I say Amanda, as
Okay.
when I'm talking about her instead of to her. But then Amazon just hired an Alexa rep whose name is Amanda, which which totally confusing. But anyway, so so how do humans talk? So humans, we speak with inflection, we take pauses, we have emphasis. Um, and computers don't talk that way. Computers are, I mean, one of the supposed great things about computers, you give it the same inputs, you should always get the same outputs, but that's not how people work. And so that's an impediment to maintaining the fiction that this is actually a person, or sort of a person. Um, and so um, my Alexa friends don't like when I say this, but if Alexa was a person, would call her a psychopath, um, because psychopathy is not having emotional responses, and generally Alexa and any of the voice systems don't have emotional responses. So let's listen to this.
You have won the lottery. Woo-hoo. And also, a meteor is coming later today and we are all going to die.
If a person spoke like that, you'd be very disturbed by them. But
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
um, uh, but and it's funny. One time I had I was speaking to a telephone caller system, and I couldn't tell whether there was a really good AI system or a really bored representative, and that was kind of weird. But so when Alexa speaks like that, it's hard to think of her as a person.
Because there's lack of emotion in some form or the other. Like, for example, the way she says it's a meteor that's going to come and we're all going to die. The human aspect of that would be just probably freaking out right now, like, okay, I'm going to die, or you'd be saddened by that, or there'll be some kind of an emotion that is attached to it, right?
Right.
Either you're worried, you're freaked out, or you're just plain simple sad. I think Alexa or maybe Siri or any other, or any of the voice assistants, I just believe that they are just robotic in nature for some reason. And I think it's just because they're just reading off a certain set of words, and that word pronunciation has been, to your point, earlier point, Brian, right? It has been set in a specific manner. So it just talks in the same tone, like, all the words are, there is no, for some reason, I don't know if it's even possible to kind of add that, the emotion, the toning behind it. Maybe it's too difficult to do that. They might have thought about it.
Well, as we'll see in just a minute, it actually is possible, and it's not that hard. Now, so there's a couple parts to this. The first part is because emotions are tricky, and when I say the easy part is making the actual speech sound emotional, I know that's not really easy, but there are people who, there are PhDs who figure out how to actually change inflections and so on. But since I'm not doing that, by definition, it's easy. So the hard part is knowing what to say, what emotion to say. And in general, if you're having a conversation with a person, if you're going to have an emotional conversation with the person, you need to have some insight into the emotional state of the person. Now, lots of people can't do that, which is really sad. We talk about the voice assistants getting better, and I think the humans getting worse. Now, in my case, since I'm writing a sports related skill, I actually have a much easier time inferring emotional state. If I know what team you like and that team won, I know you're probably happy. If your team lost, you're probably sad. Interestingly, if you dislike a team and they lost, you're also probably quite happy. But I need to know which teams you like and don't like. So in sports, it's actually a simpler thing in some cases to know what the emotional state of the listener is, so I can adjust things to take advantage of that. So here's an example of Alexa actually saying something with some emotion.
This is a simple spoken response with emotion indicators. Liverpool wins the league, and so on and so on. Emotions take time.
So there's a bunch of things to unpack there. That wasn't how Alexa normally speaks. And also Liverpool is doing pretty bad this year. So it's, but the other thing that I actually find quite interesting is, and this is the actual code. That's the whole code. I just say, emotion name is excited, the intensity is high, but it didn't immediately go to high. It ramped up. And that's why I say emotions take time. People don't change so quickly because that sounds very weird. And so Alexa doesn't either. So when you say, excitement, it ramps the excitement. So that actually is a very good mimic of reality. But what it also means is that you can't put excitement just on a single word, because by the time the ramp happens, you've lost the word is over.
So let me give you an example, right? Let's say we had we would have something like hoo or Yahoo or something like that, which requires an extra boost of that emotion or that excitement to come in. Now, can we, in this case, let's say if you're putting these tags around, and specifically around the word woohoo or Yahoo or something like that, do we have to kind of put that extra boost of excitement? Would it pick up and have that higher intensity of emotion just that for that one specific word, like a human would?
You can do that. There's actually a couple ways to do that. I mean, one approach is to put the emotion tag a few words before where you actually want the emotion to happen.
Okay.
That's one approach. Amazon also has what do they call them? Speechicons, emoticons, not emoticons. They have little speechlets that are sort of just and I'll show you one in just a minute. Words that are sort of packaged together, and those can be interesting. They're a little less flexible than I want, but it's, as with all of this, you have to play with it. You have to play with it and see how it goes. And now here's an example of a good way to do it and then a bad way to do it.
The best team in the league is Leicester. The worst team in the league is Arsenal.
Now, neither of those statements are true this year, which makes me very sad. But you can see that I can have both excitement and disappointment in one sentence. But you have to be very careful. Remember when the web was first starting and people like, oh, there are blink tags, and people would make web pages with 100 blink tags. So we have the same danger here. So don't do what I'm about to show you.
Let's do too many things at once. Louder volume for the second sentence. When I wake up, I speak quite slowly. I can speak with my normal pitch, but also with a much higher pitch, and also with a lower pitch. Bada bing, bada boom. All righty.
So don't do that. So that alrighty and bada bing, bada boom, those were packaged things that they offer. I would be hard pressed to find a time to use those. So use emotion tags like you would spice. You don't dump salt on all your food, little bits and pieces.
And also the timing, as you said it, because she takes a little while to ramp up on that emotion.
Right.
Okay.
So another thing you can do, and I'm going to show you in just a sec, is we know that Alexa doesn't care about the sports because Alexa is a device. But a successful skill will give the impression that she cares. So in the sporting world, we know that it's not just life and death, it's much more important than that. So I've added background crowd noise to most of my responses. And people have said that it can be very hard to hear what I'm actually saying. But that's okay. That's just like being at the game. And so this makes it seem like Alexa understands that this is really, really important. So people actually quite like the background crowd noises because it gives an ambiance, and it's subtle. It's not in your face, and you may not even notice that the Alexa skill is appearing to be excited and appearing to put you into the stadium. Correct. But some part of you knows.
It replicates the real world scenario, right? Wherein if you were in stadium, you would have a similar experience.
Right.
So the user experience is way much better, and they can associate to it, most importantly, as humans.
Right. Now, the next place where I'm playing with is humor, and humor is very tricky. We've all, I think, been in situations where we've told a joke that has fallen flat. And one of the things in sports is, especially in British football, as much as people like to see their teams win, we love to see our opponents lose. So we'll try this one.
Hello, you asked about Arsenal. Their form is so very bad. They just keep losing and nothing could make me happier. Please continue to be terrible.
So I better only say that to someone that I know dislikes Arsenal. But to someone like my son really, really hates Arsenal, and he would find that a riot. And then...
Hello, you asked about our Leicester Foxes. Their form is so very bad. They just keep losing and the manager does nothing about it. Let's go drown our sorrows at the pub.
So if you like Leicester, and everyone should like Leicester, I'm not biased or anything, it does give the impression that, again, that the system cares. Now, this last one is, I've wondered about, if you ask a question about your favorite team and the team has done really bad, should I even answer you, or should I just distract? So
I don't think we should talk about Manchester United today. Let's talk about something else. Hey, look over there, a squirrel.
So
Mhm.
I'm going to have to do some A/B testing with this, because I think some people might find that pretty funny, but only occasionally. And some people might be really annoyed. It's like, all right, I want to know how Manchester United did, even if they did badly. So it's a tricky space to be in. So I'm experimenting with humor, but it is hard.
It is hard. But yeah, I mean, you had two sentences over there. One was about the Manchester United. And immediately then she said, oh, see, there's a squirrel over there. But that excitement took a little while again to ramp up. She was not like super excited the next minute, like a kid would be like, hey, there's a squirrel over there. And the kid is trying to run and be all excited, or anybody looks at a squirrel and probably gets excited. So it takes her a little while to kind of get there, it seems, every single time. It
Right.
seems sometimes I feel that the sentence actually finishes by the time she gets there.
Right. And again, this is a place where you want to experiment with it. You can also record your own voice, so you can actually play an MP4, as opposed to having Alexa do the speaking. And apparently, there's a whole subculture or job market for voice actors in Alexa. Again, it just takes experimenting. So the summary and the TLDR, and I have to say as an aside, I've used TLDR for decades, but I only actually found out what it meant about a year ago. It's too long, didn't read. But I'd used it forever, but I had only recently found out what it meant. But so here's the takeaway, and I'll say the QR code that has in is goes to my LinkedIn account, and the one on the right goes to my my Alexa skill, the skill we've been talking about. And I encourage people to check it out, leave a review. If you've got questions or comments, send me an email or LinkedIn. But so here's the summary. Most voice systems completely ignore emotions.
Yes.
Emotions are hard. It takes some effort. But if you put in some effort and make your voice system use emotions, your system will stand out, and it will be better received, and it will have higher engagement, and that can often lead to income. But it's one of these things where it's worth putting in a little effort to make your system stand out. I mean, right now, I think there's over 100,000, maybe 500,000 Alexa skills, and so standing out is tricky.
And requires patience and, as you said, experimentation, right? So you have to be willing to get your hands dirty and figure out the right combination that works and the right level of effort that needs to be put in to get there.
Right.
So,
And so I feel like my Premier League skill is just scratching the surface, and there's a lot more things I can do. And again, I have the advantage of, in the sports world, I have guaranteed context, but I think there's a lot of places where you have guaranteed context. If I was just giving a talk at the Voice Summit down in DC, and a couple of weeks ago, and there was actually an insurance company that had a voice system, and they demonstrated that if someone called in and said they were doing a life insurance claim, because someone died,
right.
It totally changed the affect of the speech, and it said, "Wow, I'm so sorry, to hear that," and it did it in a realistic voice. And I'm not sure exactly what it said, but it's like, "I'm so sorry to hear that. I know this is a stressful time, so let's try to make the insurance part of this as easy as possible."
Possible.
Tiny effort, but a huge impact. So I think there are lots of places where we can safely infer the emotional state of the person and react to it.
Yeah, I think it probably picked up on a couple of words that the person is coming to make a claim, and as you said, genetic claims are related to the death. But yeah, as long as that kind of an intelligence can be built in, to your point, to look for some specific words like claims or death or something like that, and then train Alexa in that specific way to react to it, I think that's where it can stand out.
Right.
Absolutely,
And it doesn't even have to be, Alexa. I'm obviously biased toward the Alexa system, but anything can do this. I think we're going to see over the next few years a great increase in the amount of emotionality that's in these systems.
Well, it'll be good to get to that point wherein you will not be able to differentiate whether it's actually a voice assistant or a human on the other side. That might be a tricky question.
Right, but then we get to the uncanny valley, and it can become a little weird. I mean, when I had that phone representative, I didn't want to say, "Hey, are you a person?" because that would be rude. But I did try. I don't remember what I said, but I tried saying something a little offbeat just to see if it would react, and I think it did turn out to be a person.
We try to get it angry, I guess.
Oh no, there's enough anger in the world.
Or maybe try to piss that person off, but yeah, that's generally could be. You could figure out whether it's a human or something, because there's certain emotions that you as humans we cannot hide, like jealousy or anger, frustration. It's very easy to pick that. Even extreme happiness or sadness, it's very difficult to hide some of these emotions, right? So, no, absolutely, Brian, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming today.
My pleasure. It's I'm glad you're doing this series, and
yeah, I mean, if there's another topic that we would like to discuss and maybe record, then let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
Right.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully this was helpful. Thank you, Brian, again. I will see you later. Take care.
Okay, take care. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.